Welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who has more job security than Trent Baalke. Kyle, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. Gotta love that story, man, huh? What are the odds of that? Who would have thought that the owners of the second-rate professional wrestling group in the United States wouldn't run an NFL team very well? Couldn't have seen that coming.
No. Plenty of head coaching news, plenty of stuff to talk about. But Kyle, today we will be doing the previews of the conference championship. I have to say, this is one of my favorite shows we do. This and the Super Bowl preview, along with like the mock draft. I think this is a lot of fun. We only have two games. We can really get into the weeds with it. I have a good time here, Kyle.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about with these games, and obviously we have to take up an hour. So we spend a lot of time talking about these two games, and really, it's probably two of our most detailed podcasts talking about this one and then the Super Bowl preview.
And it's also always fun when we get into so many details and then just everything goes wrong once the game starts.
Yeah, everything that we said is a complete lie.
Yeah. Someone says, are we going to cover the coach news? Probably not. I think we'll usually we do a show before the Super Bowl where we'll get into that probably, right?
Yeah. We usually do one the weekend before the Super Bowl where there's nothing because the Pro Bowl is nothing at this point. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talk about. We'll do all of our early off-season recap. We like to save this time for the teams that are still in it. You get your time in the off-season. We talk about teams all season. Wait till the off-season. You're fine.
Yes, exactly. Kyle, you're still in it technically for the picks show. You are down 10, but you know what? Crazier things have happened. There is it's possible to make a comeback. Famously, back in it was 2021, it was a situation where you led this week. Ultimately, you went 0 for 2. I picked the Bengals to beat the Chiefs. I went on to win the Pick'em show, so it can be done. There is history here.
Yeah, there is history. I need a lot to go my way, so we'll see what happens. But I need a miracle here. So we believe in miracles? I do. I'm not out of it yet. Let's go get this W.
Okay. Yes. Well, Kyle, I'll let you decide which game you want to go first then, because I don't know if that affects your strategy or not, but I'll let you go ahead. Is there a game you want to talk about first?
You know what? Let's bury the lead. We're okay with burying the lead. We're going to go with the NFC East tilt for the NFC Championship game. The Cinderella story, Washington Commanders, the artist formerly known as the Balls or the Washington Football Team, also had some other nicknames in the past, all that kind of stuff. This turnaround season led by their rookie quarterback, number 2 overall pick, Jayden Daniels, the best rookie season ever. He is a top 5 quarterback in the league. He is as elite as it comes. And it seems like over a season, he has single-handedly turned around this franchise, put them in a position now to they're 1 win away from the Super Bowl. And they got to go against their rivals in Philadelphia, steady as they go, the Philadelphia Eagles. They just made the Super Bowl a few years ago. This team is loaded from top to bottom. They have one of the best rosters in the league, one of the best GMs in the league, and they've been pretty steady, even though it's some coaching issues and issues with the coach with the fan base. This team continues to churn out wins and churn out talent. So really fun game. Big spread for an NFC Championship game. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, it's a surprising spread. It started at 4, I believe, and it's kept people keep betting on the Eagles. It's now up to 6.5 for them. Kyle, here's a thought. Just something I'm thinking of. Is there any positional grouping other than quarterback that you would take Washington over Philadelphia?
Washington over Philadelphia. Linebacker. And even
that's
then, I like
close. I mean,
Zach Bond is really
close.
good. Yeah. I still think the combination of Louvu and Wagner is pretty good. But even then, yeah, like you said, Bond was an All-Pro this year. He is a monster. And, the other guys in Philadelphia aren't too bad either this time around. It's still a bit of a weakness outside of Bond.
Yeah, we'll get into. I mean, the good news is if you're going to be good in one, if you're going to have the edge in one area, the quarterback is where you want to have that edge. Let's start with, Jayden Daniels. This is now the 7th time a rookie quarterback will play in the conference championship game. The previous 6 all lost. Although, I was looking at it. I actually got the list. It's mostly quarterbacks who got there with like good defenses and they ran the ball and occasionally did some stuff like Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco, Mark Sanchez. It's that style. Brock Purdy was kind of an exception, but then he got hurt. So just because this is kind of really the first time we've seen a rookie quarterback be the main reason that their team is here.
Honestly, he is the main reason that their team is
Mhm.
here. It's not a hyperbole at all. They were the number 7 offense by PFF rank for the NFL season, and this, I think that he played a huge part in that. They throw the ball almost 60% of the time, and they run the ball 40% of the time. And then out of those 40% runs, it's almost like he's doing half of that. So he's involved in almost 80% of this offense all time, and it's a really, really Jaden Daniels dependent offense. And the most important thing that he has, and the most impressive thing about him throughout his rookie season, and honestly throughout his early career, and going back to LSU even last year, is how poised he is almost at all times. I think I said it on Sunday. He just comes off as a guy who's 30 years old and not a rookie quarterback. He stays so calm under pressure, and the numbers do back it up too. He has an 84.4 passer rating under pressure. It is lower than his clean pocket passer rating, but I mean that's going to affect everybody.
It'd be weird if it wasn't.
Yeah, he's still really good under pressure too. That's the big factor of it. His turnover worthy play rate is 1.67%. That's also fantastic. I mean, this guy just doesn't make mistakes, and you could throw everything at him, and he still finds a way to stay calm and make some big time plays.
And that's good because he might be under pressure a lot in this game, Kyle. The offensive line for the Commanders, it's interesting. The overall grades are very poor, or the overall stats. Although, kind of the one thing they had going for them is that they kind of didn't have any awful player. Like Brandon Coleman and Andrew Wiley. Okay, neither of those guys are going to be making any Pro Bowl teams anytime soon at tackle, but they're at least competent tackles. The issue that they had was then Sam Cosmi, probably their best player outside of Jaden Daniels, goes down with an injury in the divisional round. He's not playing in this game. Trent Scott will be the backup who's going to come in. In some games, that would maybe be okay. In this game, when you have Josh Sweat and Jalen Carter and Milton Williams and Nolan Smith, and those are just the starters for the Eagles, there's so many talented defensive linemen here. You have to assume this is, right off the bat, a big advantage for Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah, not only is this a good defensive line for Philadelphia, it's also a deep defensive line for Philadelphia. They have a lot of options to throw at you. They have a lot of really good rushers. And then, like you said, they have a couple linebackers who are athletic, although Nakobe Dean is out and Brandon Graham, I believe, is out. So, yeah, so not having those two guys, but they still have talent even in their depth position. So that just speaks volumes to what they've been able to do building this team. And I mean, we've seen all of these guys essentially step up throughout this season, right? We saw Jalen Carter, especially in the game last week, just be a game wrecker at times and come up with some of the biggest plays of the game in that interior position. And then we've seen a guy like Nolan Smith, who has been, I mean, quite frankly, you could say the NFL doesn't have a most improved player award. You could list him among most improved players in the NFL this season. It's been a real breakout season for him and what he's been able to do with this defense. So yeah, it's going to be a handful for those guys. And yeah, Jaden Daniels is going to have to play. I mean, he's done it all year, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I believe he can do it, but he is going to face a ton of pressure, and he's going to have to withstand it and make some big plays. The tough thing he has going against Philadelphia, I mean, there's an easy element to it and there's a tough element to it. The easy element to it is Eagles don't blitz a ton. It's a Vic Fangio defense, so they have the 2 deep safeties, they rush 4 and they cover. So on the bright side, you know where the rush is coming from. It's not something that's going to surprise you. The tough thing is, this is maybe the best defensive line in the league. They're going to win their one-on-one battles at the line of scrimmage. And then also you have to throw into 7-man coverage that's covering downfield. And generally, it's one of the best coverage units in the league too. So he can withstand the pressure, make a play, but then he's also got to throw the ball downfield on one of the most talented defenses and secondaries in the league.
Another thing about the trenches, before we get too much more into the coverage as you're talking about, this is a team that loves to go for it on 4th down, which is, by the way, why don't we ever talk about that? The fact that every time anyone ever has a 4th down call that doesn't work, they get crushed for weeks. This is definitively what's winning them football games is Washington consistently going for it on 4th downs. They already have the record for most 4th down conversions in a single postseason. They've only played 2 games. Kyle, you could see some opportunities for Philadelphia to win some matchups and maybe get a stop on 4th and 2 if the Washington team runs the ball. In fact, Last time they played, that happened. There was a 4th and 1, and the Eagles got to stop. Maybe some opportunities there for Philadelphia that Tampa Bay and Detroit weren't able to come up with.
Yeah. Shout out to Kieran in the chat. Big win for Celtic. Clinched their playoff spot in the Champions League. Good stuff there. But yeah, no, I agree. It could be an opportunity, though, for Philadelphia on the defensive line to win this game in those tight, small, short yardage plays, because a lot of things that the Washington like to do on those 4th down situations is get Jaden Daniels moving. And he uses his legs a lot in those 4th down plays. It's a lot of design run plays. And Cliff Kingsbury, to his credit, is very creative with those plays to set up his quarterback in situations to win on the outside and get first downs. But this is such an athletic group on the defensive line. You mentioned Nolan Smith. He's one of the, best athletes at the defensive end position in the league. He's just so quick. It's not going to be as easy for Jaden Daniels to just evade that pressure all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see how Washington handles that situation. And I think the 4th down decisions are going to be. You mentioned that they're not like getting grilled for it or anything like that. Somebody with these two teams playing, whoever loses, is going to get grilled for a 4th down decision. I feel it. I just feel it coming. And honestly, they're both probably going to fail on a 4th down conversion, but it doesn't matter. The losing team is going to get grilled for it, while the winning team, it doesn't matter.
I promise you, if Nick Sirianni gets one wrong, he'll get grilled for it. If they're up 40, he'll still get grilled for it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Kyle, you brought up the coverage unit. You're absolutely right. It looks like Quinyon Mitchell is going to play. Now, how healthy will he be? That remains to be seen. But it looks like he's going to play. You have Cooper DeJean, Darius Slay, and even I think Isaiah Rodgers is not a bad depth corner too. So if he has to come in and play, like he held his own last week, and he's not Quinyon Mitchell, he's not Darius Slay, but he can do some things. Not to mention C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship over the middle. These two teams played each other not too long ago. And in fact, in my preview video, I mentioned, I don't think Jaden Daniels has ever played a game under 50. I was wrong. I forgot about this season where actually the last time they played, it was 32 degrees. So it's actually it might be a couple degrees warmer the next time these two teams play. So we know kind of how Daniels can handle the weather because we've seen that. And there were times when he was throwing all over the secondary. I mean, there were moments when Terry McLaurin beat, I believe it was Quinyon Mitchell down the field. Dimey Brown beat Darius Slay down the field. So Philadelphia has a great coverage unit, but as kind of the old expression goes, a great route and great throw can beat great coverage. And we saw that last time these two teams played.
Yeah. It was an interesting game as far as all those elements go, because obviously, people kind of take it as with a grain of salt, because obviously Jalen Hurts got hurt very early in that game, and so they kind of disregard the game as a whole. But I'm not taking Jalen Hurts' injury in saying that taking away from Jaden Daniels' performance in that game to say Jalen Hurts' injury is the only reason why they won that game. Yes, that obviously played a big part. Philadelphia probably does win with him, but at the same time, the way he was able to move the ball in this defense, who just quite simply doesn't allow a lot of yards, it was an impressive thing. And he did it with both his legs and his arm. He had over 330 total yards, excuse me. And then obviously the 5 touchdown passes. And yeah, I mean, that was a crazy comeback, and it was a lot of it was a fourth quarter stuff, but Daniels really stepped up in that game, and he can absolutely move it on this team if he needs to. But it's going to take him playing at his best. That's quite simply what it is, right? He has to put on the Superman cape probably more than any other player this conference championship weekend for his team to win. And that's why the spread replicates what it is at 6.5, because there is a talent gap between these two teams. There's no sugarcoating that. There is a gap, but Daniels is the kind of player that can minimize that on his own.
Yeah. It's always difficult. You never want to bet against a better quarterback because so much of these little details that we talk about can easily not matter if Daniels is playing at a high level, and there's no reason to expect him to play any differently. The other aspect of this is this Eagles team does a great job of getting turnovers. And if you miss the throw in their zone coverage, they're going to get a takeaway. They punch the ball out, and in the cold, that can happen. They had 3 forced fumbles, which they recovered the last time these teams played, along with 2 interceptions of Jaden Daniels. So the Commanders have played completely clean football in the playoffs. They'll probably have to continue that if they're going to win this one.
Yeah. It was one of Daniels's. Daniels had 2 multi-interception games this season, if I'm counting correctly. Oh, excuse me, 3 multi-interception game. No, I counted that wrong again. 2 multi-interception games this season. This was one of the 2. So yeah, I think it's it is going to be a huge factor in this game. I'll put it this way: they are not turning the ball over 5 times again in this one and winning this game for a change, like they did that one in the middle of the season this year. So they're definitely going to have to play a much cleaner game in that regard. And yeah, I mean, we saw how essential, how huge turnovers were in the divisional round. You know, like you said, the teams that won last weekend committed 0 turnovers, and that's been a huge part of Washington so far in this postseason. You know, they played Tampa Bay, and the difference in that game, sorry Jackson, was Tampa Bay made 1 mistake and Washington did not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the game last week, they didn't make a mistake again. So it's going to have to take another clean game like that.
Yeah. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Kyle, we kind of brought up how the Commanders' offensive line against the Eagles' defensive line, a massive mismatch. So are the trenches on the other side of the ball. This is, well, there are players I like on this Commanders' defensive line, like the Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, even Johnny Newton on occasion. I mean, this is still a team that, like, Cleveland Furl is getting significant playing time. Like, this is not, they have a lot of different players play, but this is not necessarily an elite defensive line, to say the least. And when you have Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Mekhi Becton, Landon Dickerson, and Cam Jurgens coming to town, or I always say that even if they're at their home stadium, you know what I mean. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough in the run game. It's going to be tough in the passing game. You know, we saw last week Hurts kind of struggled against some of the pressure that the Rams could get. I don't see the Commanders being able to win their one-on-ones in these scenarios too often. So, football's weird. Sometimes it goes the other way, but I would be shocked if it went the other way in this game.
Yeah. And that was a huge thing in that game too, why Philadelphia was still able to get out to that big lead even without Hurts, was because they couldn't stop him on the ground. And you know, you mentioned this offensive line, which deserves a ton of credit. You know, in our end of season recap, we did our all pro teams and awards. You named Jordan Mailata your offensive player of the year, where I think the conventional thing is going to be Saquon Barkley is going to win offensive player of the year. And he, you know, either or, whoever you want to give the credit to at the end of the day, they both deserve a ton of credit, because this offensive line, led by Mailata, led by Lane Johnson, led by Dickerson. I mean, it's 5 really good offensive linemen, as you said, and Saquon Barkley, who's maybe the best running back in the league right now, behind them. And that is a huge factor in this game. I mean, it's just going to be really tough for Washington to win in those situations. And it was such a problem in that game. I think Saquon Barkley had over 150 yards. They had over 200 rushing yards in that game. And it's going to be a difficult thing for Washington to answer for, because they didn't have an answer for it in their last matchup.
Or the matchup before, for that matter. Saquon Barkley, I think he's right around 300 yards total the 2 times they've played each other. Granted, we have seen moments where football is still like an X's and O's game to some degree, where it's like, if you tell your linebackers, hey, just go all out to stop the run, like, a lot of times you can still make it work and you can still stop them, which makes you wonder how anyone watched football before the forward pass. But, like, it seems like it can still be done. Again, I just don't see a scenario where they're not giving up stuff to Saquon Barkley, and even Jalen Hurts, who they're seeing, you know, they're having more design runs. He keeps getting hurt on these design runs. In fact, that's what happened last time these 2 teams played. So that's an issue, and he isn't 100%. But you have to just assume this is, again, sorry, Washington fans, there's going to be a lot of things we talk about that are advantage Philadelphia. Obviously, you have the advantage where it matters most. But, like, this is just another one of those things where it's advantage Philadelphia. Yeah.
It's very much advantage Philadelphia, and I think Hurts' legs are going to be an interesting wrinkle in this game. We're going to see how healthy he is, you know, because part of that play was that, you know, he started to run the ball well in that game and then got hurt on one of those plays, like you said, and he got hurt last week, and we're going to see what his mobility looks like, because immediately after that injury and the rest of that Rams game, Hurts didn't look that mobile. So how is that going to affect him going forward in this game especially? I think it's going to be a huge factor in Philadelphia's offense and how successful it is, because I like Hurts. I do want to, you know, I do criticize Hurts. It feels like a good amount on this podcast. I think he's a pretty good quarterback, I like him a little. I like him a lot less though if he's a pocket quarterback and not mobile because he's not the biggest. He doesn't have the strongest arm, and that's a huge factor to how they run their offense.
Yeah, yeah. What Hurst has done a great job this postseason of is just protecting the football. That's kind of been the main thing he's done. Obviously, they haven't relied on him a ton, but it's not unfair to say, like, you're right. I'm pretty pro Hurts as well, but it's not crazy to say he's clearly the fourth best quarterback still in it right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think he deserves a ton of credit for some of the performances he's had in the past. People like to say he brought the team to the Super Bowl. He played very, very well in that Super Bowl game, even though they lost, right? And he's had a lot of really big games and come up with big performances in big games itself. But yeah, I think based on what we've seen this season, I would say he's a distant fourth out of four. Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where I think he's good, but everyone around him right now is great.
Yeah, and I don't think he's been at his best in the playoffs too. Like that's part of
No.
it as well. Is like we have seen Hurts play at a borderline elite level. The year that they went to the Super Bowl, I believe he was second in MVP voting that year. Like we've seen this happen, but like we haven't really seen it outside of that year. We've seen flashes of him. We've definitely seen him go off in certain games. The good news is he doesn't need to, right? He doesn't need to be elite in this game. He can let the rest of the team, like we said, there's so many other edges. But the concern you have is like if this game does get into a shootout, if Daniels is able to just throw all over you and the running game is going well, but they're still got to stop the run, can Hurts make the plays he has? If he has to make 4 plays this game, he'll make the 4 plays. If he has to make 14, will he make the 14?
Right. Yeah. And it's another one where I do think, he is affected a lot more by pressure than Jaden Daniels, and that is just going to have to be a huge factor in this game. If Washington is loading up on the line of scrimmage, if it's a pass play, they have to put pressure on Hurts in this game. They have to get to him because if you're loading up to stop the run and Philadelphia drops back to pass, that's leaving one-on-one matchups most times on the outside. And then you have Philadelphia with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the outside. And that's generally matchups where they haven't won a lot of those so far in this playoffs. That's still not something I want to bet on a whole lot if I'm Washington. And yes, they did trade for a guy like Marshawn Lattimore. They're hoping is a big factor in that. But Marshawn Lattimore hasn't had that good of a postseason. So how do you hope that he's going to be able to win on the outside against A.J. Brown? It's going to be a tough matchup.
And actually, if you remember, Lattimore played in that game a few weeks ago. He kind of finally came back from injury and then got hurt very late in that game. Kyle, A.J. Brown took Lattimore's lunch money in that game. I mean, they went on one-on-one a lot, and Brown had, I think, over 100 yards against him. It felt like every time. And there was also like 50 yards of pass interference penalties on top of that. It was a rough performance from Lattimore, who, quite frankly, just hasn't been very good for the Commanders. I'm sure he's not 100%, but like that's been an issue. Kyle, remember a few years ago when Tre'Davious White with the Bills came back from injury and the team was noticeably worse defensively because they kept putting Tre'Davious White on opposing team's number one corner? Like they treated him like he was the number one corner and like he clearly wasn't as good. I feel like there's some similar stuff with Lattimore here. Obviously, Lattimore is an incredible player, has had an incredible career, often at the expense of my favorite team. But like, I feel like it would be insane to leave him one-on-one against A.J. Brown in this game, who's a whole other thing we have to get into. But like, I feel like just that decision that's a tough one for Washington.
It hasn't worked so far. So that's the first struggle. And then the other struggle, I mean, like, I don't know how much to put it on, like, compared to the fact is he's played 3 games basically with this team. He's played 2 playoff games and he played that Philadelphia game, which he didn't even finish. He was suited up for, I think, the New Orleans game, but he didn't register a stat in that game. So, it's just he's basically played 3 games basically with this team because he basically played the full game in that Philadelphia one. I know he went off injured, but he played the majority of it. That's tough to kind of integrate yourself in a team when you haven't had a opportunity to really work with the starters, stuff like that, working your game. And he's looked rusty in the playoffs. He really has. This is a big performance, big time matchup, and they're going to ask him to try one on the outside. But like you said, they're going to have to find a way to get him to help because it's just a recipe for disaster to expect him to win that one-on-one all the time.
Yeah, I mean, again, the flip side. So AJ Brown currently averages over 4 yards per route ran against man coverage. That's like an absurd number. Anything over 2 is great. So he's double that. Um, yeah, and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert are also very good. The thing about AJ Brown though is like, I mean, talk about not playing well these playoffs. Like he's basically been a no show for both playoff games. I mean, these are Lattimore and AJ Brown. I don't know. They both have a chance to be into Hall of Fame someday. But like right now, like they're playing like I don't know who I trust the least, I guess, in this situation. I think I'm still just going to naturally lean to wide receiver, but like that's such a unique scenario that I can't really think of ever happening before, where there's like this big time matchup, but both of them are playing horrible going into it. Something has to give.
You would hope something has to give because we want it from an entertainment standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he hasn't been at his best. He's been more known for reading books on the sideline than actually catching a football. That's generally not where you want to be at as a professional football player. Although I do encourage everyone to read. Everyone should read a book. You know, but yeah, I just think it's I'm still betting on AJ Brown to be fine. I think he's dealt with some minor knocks, stuff like that, and I think he's going to be fine. And if you ask me who would I pick in that matchup, like you said, I would lean on the receiver, and I would lean on the superstar play of AJ Brown over the inconsistencies that Lattimore has brought.
Yeah, you have Mike Sandstrill, which is that how you say his name? Sanderstrill? I say Sandstrill. That can't be right, right? There's an R in there. I think I screwed it up. I don't know. I'm confused. Anyway, yeah, Mike Sandstrill. See, it's confusing. But anyway, he's a very good corner. Obviously, he had 2 picks last week. More of a slot guy. Do you consider putting him out there and just saying like, let's see if we can make this work? The thing about the Commanders is this is a mismatch. They have 2 good linebackers, and other than that, they don't have enough depth in the secondary. They don't have enough star powers in the secondary. They don't have a defensive line that can hang with this offensive line. But they've gotten turnovers. Yes, they kind of got gifted 1 against Tampa Bay, but they got 5 against the Detroit Lions. And that kind of has to be the mindset, right? Don't be afraid to take a shot and try to see if you can jump a route here. If you get burned, you get burned.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to end up what it has to be, right? They have to take those chances. And yes, if you get burned, like you said, it's okay to get beat a couple times because you have a quarterback that can keep you in the game, but you can't constantly get beat and not capitalize on turnover opportunities too. So can they flip that script and help themselves in that favor? That's going to be a huge part of this game because it's just one of those things where on a down-to-down basis, Philadelphia is going to win. They're going to win against most teams they play because they're one of the most complete teams in the league. They're talented at both sides of the ball, and it's just gonna take a lot, I think, to overcome that and find a way to get a win.
DG says your taste in books is probably as bad as your taste in music and sports franchises.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I got bad taste. That's fine.
You can have bad taste. You have your taste. No such thing as bad taste.
That's fair. What did I watch the other day? I watched Nora, the movie. That was pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. See, you have good taste.
There you go. See, apparently he just doesn't like Oasis. That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, not everything has to be. Not everything's for you, DG.
Yeah, DG. I mean, isn't he a Giants fan or something? Like, we're talking about bad taste here. Like,
yeah, bad taste. You're listening to our podcast. I mean, clearly this is on you.
Yeah. No, New York sports. That's embarrassing stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Kyle, Jake Elliott, what's going on with him? Like he's missing kicks a lot, and that's maybe concerning in a big game like this. You would have cut Jake Elliott already.
Yeah, I don't know why I wouldn't be loyal. So yeah, no, I'm not a fan, but he's made some big kicks in his career, and they're going to need him to tighten up here. They can't miss extra points. Like, just win on special teams. Make your field goals kickers. Come on now.
Yeah. In fairness, he has been perfect 6 for 6 on field goals in this postseason, but he has gone 2 for 5 on extra points. So, yeah, including multiple missed ones. Last week, one that almost killed them, almost ended their season, had Matthew Stafford, really had Jalen Carter not made that one play at the end. Kyle, let's get into predictions. So, I've gone back and forth on what the best strategy is with this. I think I really don't want to put much into the Bills-Chiefs game, and I want to avoid that at all costs. So I'm just going to say, you know what? let's ride with one of these teams. And if I'm wrong, then everything goes horribly wrong. I'm going to put 19 points on the Eagles here. I'm going to just hope that we the team that has advantages, and like we said, basically every single area can hold on and win this game. It is very concerning doing this against Jaden Daniels because I do think this line is way too high, and I do think Daniels has a chance. But when the other game is Bills Chiefs, I want to stay away from that. I'm betting 19 points on the Philadelphia Eagles out of my 20 total points that I have.
All right. Well, that'll definitely add some intrigue. I am going to go with the Eagles as well. I'm going to trying to strategize this here.
Yeah, you can take your time if you need to.
Yeah. So I'm down 10 points.
Yes.
All right. And if you're only going to put one on the other game, doesn't really affect me much anyways. So I'm going to go. How much is our Super Bowl worth?
The Super Bowl is 10 points and then plus the spread of the game.
10 points plus the spread of the game. Wow. All right. I'm just going to put 9 points on Philadelphia. So that way, if it's a loss, then I can cover the ground. So that's fine with me.
Okay. So if the Commanders win after this game, it will be a tie. We will be tied in this scenario. So intrigue there. Yeah, we got to make the Super Bowl less. I think next year, let's make it 5 points plus the spread of the game.
Yeah, that's fair. Because it's basically decided on that. That's fair.
Yeah, we kind of threw that number out there. I didn't think we'd always be like within 10 points, except for the first year. That's what's always happened. Maybe this year will be an exception. Who knows? But yeah, so, okay. And it wouldn't be fair to change it here. So we'll keep it at the 10. But then, in the future, we can change that. Makes sense?
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay, yeah. Kyle, we buried the lead. Let's now get into it. Bills Chiefs. I mean, this is just, again, I mean, I say, like, is this the year? We've been saying this every year, but is this the year for the Buffalo Bills? First time in the conference championship game since 2020 when they really kind of got crushed by the Chiefs. But that was the first year Josh Allen was really Josh Allen. Since then, they've gotten beat by the Chiefs multiple times in the divisional round. The famous 13 seconds game, also wide right part 2 last year. The Chiefs are only 1.5 point favorites at home in Arrowhead. I mean, this is a game that, again, if you're not excited for this game, you don't watch football.
Yeah. I mean, the history of this game says it's going to be a classic. These two teams have played a lot over the last few years, and it's been basically close every time. And yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to. They played a great game in the regular season, and I know Baltimore was there as well, but it just felt like all year we were kind of waiting for this matchup in the postseason. We finally get it. It's two of the best offenses in the league, and yeah, two of the best quarterbacks in the league that have gone head to head a lot. And like you said, Mahomes has come out on top every time in the playoffs, but the whole picture says it's a little bit closer. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how that plays out.
Yeah, not just a little bit closer. I tweeted this out. I'm not sure if you saw it, but in 8 times they've played each other total, they have both won 4 times. The Bills have scored 26.6 points per game. The Chiefs 26.4 points per game. Each of them with a passer rating of 97.3. Although, of course, Mahomes better in the playoffs, 3-0 there. Allen and the Bills 4-1 in the regular season, including 4 straight wins in the regular season. So the Bills usually win in the regular season. So if you're thinking, hey, the Bills won earlier this year, don't think that means the Bills are going to win again.
Yeah, definitely not going to happen that way. And not to mention, we just saw it with Baltimore last week. So that plays a big part in it too. All these games are different in little ways. Everything can play different. The game script can be a little bit different. So there's a lot of intrigue there. And yeah, I mean, these two teams always find a way to make little adjustments that are the difference in the game. And the big factor to it too is, Patrick Mahomes when he needs to. You could talk a lot about what Kansas City does throughout the season and how they handle these games, how they've managed their schedule as they go for this illustrious three-peat. The one thing we do know is that when the going gets tough, they're going to go to Patrick Mahomes. He is the best player in the league. He is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He is chasing his 4th Super Bowl ring, 3rd in a row. And yeah, I mean, this bit of history is a huge factor of what they want to do. And we saw it last week as they took on a tough, gritty Houston team that did give them some problems. when it got tough, it was Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, who are two Hall of Famers and have been the benchmark for what this offense has been when they needed it.
Yeah. Kyle, what would the point spread be AFC versus NFC right now? You don't know who's playing. All you know is if you had to give a point spread for the winner of the AFC versus the winner of the NFC. Are we going like 5.5?
I wouldn't go that high. I'd say like 4.5 because,
Uh-huh.
I mean, the assumption obviously is Philadelphia wins, but obviously anything's possible. So that's where you add a little bit more. I would say 4.5, 5. Yeah, that's probably fair.
Yeah. Yeah. You could talk me, but like the winner of this game will be significant favorites in the Super Bowl. That's and just because that's the case, there's been plenty of times throughout sports where we feel like the real championship is the conference championship, and then the other team still wins. So it doesn't mean it can't go that way. But that's definitely the feeling going into it. Is whoever wins this will be significantly favored in the Super Bowl. Let's start off with Mahomes. Let's start off with just this unique Chiefs team that we all feel like they're not that good, and yet they've won back-to-back Super Bowls and have the best record in the league, and also are hosting the conference championship game. What's going on here?
Yeah, it has been a roller coaster of a season. And the big factor of it is just how much better they've gotten throughout the season. If you asked me this game on when they played the first time, I would have said I'm taking Buffalo all the way. I would say Buffalo is my favorite to win the AFC Championship, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that would have been a huge factor in my decision making. But at the same time, things change. And what we've seen is this Kansas City team kind of start to maximize its efficiency a little bit. Once again, it was not perfect last week, but they just have been able to find ways to make plays and use all of their different playmakers all over the field. And a lot of that comes down to Mahomes getting more and more comfortable every single week, it seems like, with this team, with these young receivers that they have, with this backfield now getting healthy. And yeah, I think he's been able to maximize performance of the guys around him at times. And no matter what the mismatch is in the game against Houston, it was over the middle with Kelce. He's been able to use that mismatch, whether it's Xavier Worthy, whether it's Hollywood Brown, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins. He manages to find those plays, those playmakers that he can lean on in those games.
Yeah. I mean, and this is not a good coverage unit for the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. It just isn't. I mean, they've schemed up in certain aspects, but this is the thing we always criticize McDermott with. And I'll say this. I think McDermott's had a great playoffs so far. I think McDermott has been a massive plus for this Bills team in a way where in the past he hasn't been. But we've seen this happen where you have this coverage team that's not the most talented, but hey, we scheme them up and have the right plays for each situation. When you go up against a smart quarterback like Mahomes, who just knows what you're running, he just can exploit weaknesses. I like Christian Benford as a corner. Rasul Douglas has kind of had an up and down season. And really, I mean, it's Taron Johnson, Cole Bishop, DeMar Hamlin, and then Taylor Rapp's banged up currently. We'll see if he plays. But there's just not a lot of. I don't love this. I just don't love this coverage unit. The other thing though is I don't love this receiving core that much from the Chiefs. I mean, Kyle, the stat I always throw at you is that there has never been a team to make the Super Bowl since I looked up the data, which is now 14 years ago, it's been the past 14 years. There's never been a team with a below average receiving core make the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are below average. The Chiefs could break that trend if they can make this happen. Granted, you could also say, well, that's not good for the Chiefs then. But I do feel like this is weirdly, this is one of those situations where it's kind of okay on not great here in a big spot for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's not a great spot for them. I agree. And it is a weird thing where you look at this Chiefs team. They are 19th in receiving by PFF grades, as you mentioned. They're 13th in pass blocking, but they have a top 10 passing offense because of Mahomes, basically, which is a huge factor in that. But yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of great options out there. And yes, they've gotten healthier and it's gotten better. Hopkins has gotten more involved in the offense. Hollywood Brown has gotten more involved in the offense. So maybe that plays a factor in this game. But equally, I do think there are some issues with this Buffalo secondary, as we've seen throughout the season. It's really struggled at times and really struggled against some of the best teams. That Los Angeles game still plays a huge factor into my head when I'm watching this team is this defense just got destroyed in that game. But it'll be very interesting to see how they decide to adjust in this game. Like, do they just decide to say, you know what? We have they don't have the greatest receiving core. Let's go man to man on the outside. Let's try and match this team up this way. And yes, we haven't got the best performance out of some of those guys this season, but Rasul Douglas is still someone I still kind of view as a good player. And if I'm putting him one-on-one against DeAndre Hopkins, I think he can win, especially DeAndre Hopkins at this stage. Christian Bedford is probably our best corner. We're going to put him out there against a Hollywood Brown and Teron Johnson against Xavier Worthy. Like, that's something we could probably minimize. I do think we got a pretty good game from Matt Milano last season, which is something that they've really struggled with his consistency coming on and off the field. But a lot of that was done on the line of scrimmage, spying on Lamar Jackson. A lot of it wasn't in coverage. So who they decide to handle those matchups if they do go man-to-man. And then also the biggest question is going to be who's handling Travis Kelce in those situations. I think it's going to be a huge factor in how the Bills defense handles this.
Yeah, I still feel like it's advantage Kansas City. And even DJ in the chat brings up about like those numbers are bringing up. I mean, Hopkins has been there for most of the year, but Marquise Brown wasn't there for most of the year. So like that is a and Hopkins still missed half the season because he was playing for different teams. So so that factors in. Kyle, what the other interesting thing is with Patrick Mahomes, it's not just about can you cover for 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Sometimes it's about can you cover for 8 seconds because he's so good at getting outside the pocket. What the Bills did last time was they put a spy on him on pretty much every obvious passing situation, which is a smart strategy. And I think that we might see less of Mahomes being able to scramble and make things happen than we're used to seeing Mahomes be able to do.
Yeah, and they did it last week too very effectively. Like I said, Milano did a really good job in that game, I think, spying on Jackson, and I expect him to do something kind of similar in this game. The only worry about it for going against Patrick Mahomes is having Milano as a spy takes one guy out of your coverage, right? Like it's 7 instead of 6, or it's 6 instead of 7 in theory, unless you're adjusting your defensive line schemes too, which is a whole different thing altogether. But as we've talked about all season, the Kansas City Chiefs, they have some good grades on the offensive line, including their pass blocking is pretty decent, but a lot of that is also that they have some big problems on the offensive tackle positions. Joe Thuney has moved out to left tackle. I don't think he's been as effective at left tackle. I mean, I think everybody could say he's a much better left guard than left tackle, but he's trying his best out there. And if you're going to say there's one strength to this Buffalo team, it is their pass rush. Gregory Rousseau and Von Miller are both very, very good players. They came up with some big plays in that game too last week against Baltimore. And yeah, I think that's going to be a huge factor because, like you said, it is tough to get Mahomes. It's one thing to beat the offensive line, which is struggling. A lot of teams are able to do that. It's a whole nother thing to get to Patrick Mahomes in the same play and bring him down. But having a combination of Von Miller and Rousseau and also Milano in that spy situation, it could work. It could be a case that may work for Buffalo as well.
Kieran brings up as well, even when you tackle Pat, there's a 50-50 chance he completes a mid-pass tackle. That's true, although I will say he threw him, while he was in the middle of getting tackled. Last time they played earlier this year, he threw an interception. I'm not saying it's going to happen every time, but maybe you can get that. I don't know. Kyle, you're bringing up the offensive line, which is a good point. Joe Thuney, it's that weird thing, right? Of like, I feel like Thuney is definitely the best option at left tackle, but now that he's at left tackle, which I'm assuming they're going to just continue with, you then have Mike Caliendo at left guard, and then Jawan Taylor at right tackle. You have 3 players who now aren't great on this offensive line, when usually they at least have 3 good players on the offensive line. Still might be the right strategy. This is a good pass rush for Buffalo. Greg Rousseau was a really good pass rusher. Ed Oliver's very good from the inside. Some depth players, but Von Miller, who they put him in this rotational role, he's really excelled. Kyle, he's PFF's 11th highest graded edge rusher right now. He doesn't get a ton of snaps anymore, but like he's been very good as a kind of 20-25 snap a game player, and he'll be out there in big moments. And of course, the situation isn't going to get to him. So the guy's won 2 Super Bowls, including a Super Bowl MVP. Sorry to bring that up, Kyle. That Broncos run, but you did it to me earlier. I have to get you back. Yeah. there's just an advantage, and Mahomes is so good at getting around that. We know that going in. The pass Mahomes has won a Super Bowl with awful tackle play, but still there is still an advantage here for Buffalo.
Without a doubt, there is an advantage there for Buffalo. So it is going to be very fascinating to see how Kansas City handles that and how Kansas City handles it with their ground game too, because this Buffalo run defense equally isn't very good. They do have pass rushers, I think, more of those defensive tackle positions, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but they do give up yards on the ground. I don't think statistically Kansas City did a fantastic job on the ground against Houston, which is a very good run defense. But at the same time, I think Kareem Hunt got some really important yards in that game, and they're going to have to rely on him to get some important yards, I think, in this game too, and maybe even be a bigger part of the offense. So it's going to be fascinating to see how Kansas City handles that situation, because the last thing they need to do is, like you said, in that specialist role, get stuck on a third down with Von Miller subbing into the game, and him and Rousseau have their ears pinned back in a situation to get after Mahomes, because he is good at avoiding those sacks and making big plays out of them. I'm not betting on it all the time. I don't want to bet on that all the time if I have to.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because with these two teams, we kind of naturally just think about it in terms of obvious passing situations. But you're right. Like, the Chiefs do avoid those as much as they can. Like, they don't like to be in obvious passing situations, despite the fact that they have Mahomes. They try to run the ball, and I think they should do an okay job in this game. If you're expecting this to be a low scoring game, I don't know what to tell you. I think this is going to be a high scoring game, or at least I think both offenses will play well.
I think so too. At least matchup wise, we nitpicked everything over here. Kansas City has a clear advantage on offense. The one factor, which has been a huge factor for Kansas City all season, why they may not score a ton of points, is the length of their drives and how long these drives take. They take these very long methodical drives. A lot of it is scheme based, because teams are just exclusively keeping safeties downfield to prevent Patrick Mahomes from throwing that deep ball that is so lethal. And so they run a lot of these long drives with many, many plays that take a lot of minutes. Their points per drive are still pretty good, but it lowers their offensive total points. That is a huge factor in it. So yeah, I think that's the only thing that's going to play a factor in this game, and why it's lower scoring if both of these teams are taking longer drives to score.
Right, exactly. But should be interesting. Kyle, let's talk about the other side of the ball. Let's start off with, I think, the biggest advantage the Bills have in this game, period, which is, so the Chiefs, we've kind of talked about it all year. They have some very good corners. Trent McDuffie, he's an all-pro. Jalen Watson is a guy who I think you and I both like. His numbers against man coverage this season are crazy. He gives up a 34.6 passer rating against when he's in man coverage, a PFF grade over 90 in that situation. But you have Chamari Connor and Nazeez Johnson, and then Joshua Williams. He's just playing special teams right now. They're not even playing him as a corner, which is kind of surprising. The safeties, Jaden Hicks, Justin Reed, Brian Cook, none terrible, but I really think that the Buffalo Bills have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. And you remember last time they played, Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid weren't out there. You now have those two along with Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, even like Mac Hollins can make some plays, Dawson Knox, James Cook as a running back. They're just so deep. I think what Josh Allen's going to do a lot is just say, I don't care who I like for my team. Who's your worst player? I'm going to target you every play.
Yeah. And I think that's been a huge part of Josh Allen's game, is how he's developed in being able to recognize those mismatches and make plays. And, they've had a lot of guys really step up this season. You mentioned Keon Coleman, that was one of Amari Cooper's early games in Buffalo, and he had a big catch in that game. Khalil Shakir is a big factor in this game in the slot. And even guys like you said, Mac Hollins on the outside with his speed, able to make some plays too. These are all guys that have kind of stepped up this season, and Josh Allen's worked really well with all of them. It was surprising to see how much this team upgraded, it felt like, after trading Stephon Diggs, because all of these guys seem to buy into this offense and, work really hard to get open. And I think it's a really talented receiving group, even if there's no conventional star.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's kind of exactly like the issue is last time, earlier when these teams would play, you can kind of, L'Jarius Sneed would take Diggs out of the game on plays. And then what do? Right here, they don't have to worry that much about that. People bring it up in the chat, which I'm glad someone mentioned it, because I meant to mention it. Of course, the Chiefs also were missing several key players last time they played as well. This is the game I'm like, I don't care hardly at all about last time they played. I really don't care that much. We've seen history show that the Bills, there's been, I believe, multiple times already that it's twice that the Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Or no, I think it's only once, but we've seen before that the Bills win the regular season and then lose to the Chiefs in the postseason. That's something that we've seen happen. So I don't care that much about it, but I just think there's an advantage there. Like, Josh Allen's not stupid. He's not going to say, well, I like Khalil Shakir on this route. He's going to say, let's look the numbers on the Chiefs jerseys as well.
Yeah. It's definitely about looking for the mismatches, because this Chiefs defense does throw a lot of talented players at you, and they make it difficult by trying to disguise their scheme, disguise their blitzes, and that's what the toughest thing is. Josh Allen has seen this team a lot, and I think he's done very well against this team in the playoffs, despite his team not winning those games. Handling those situations, handling those pressures, and making those big plays. He's been very good against the Chiefs in the playoffs, honestly. It's unfortunate that he hasn't won a game, because he has been that good in those games too, especially the last two, as you mentioned. And, it's going to be a huge factor in, his overall perception. I mean, it's a huge, obviously the three-peat for the Chiefs is a huge lasting impact on this game, but, Josh Allen is playing a lot for his, quote unquote legacy in this game. Can he get over this hump? Can he beat this Chiefs team that has been such a thorn in his side over the years? He's got to do it one time at least to get over that hump and get into that upper echelon of guys. And, it's going to be very fascinating to see how he handles that.
I mean, part of this is like he's trying to make the Hall of Fame, right? Because he doesn't have MVPs. He's never made it to a Super Bowl. Being able to beat Mahomes and potentially win a Super Bowl, granted, again, the last guy to beat Mahomes in a conference championship game didn't win the Super Bowl. That was the Bengals with Joe Burrow. But still, you're absolutely right. This is completely a legacy game for Allen, which is why it's so exciting, I think. Let's talk about the front seven for the Chiefs. Really, I mean, okay, listen, there's guys I like on this Chiefs defensive line. Chris Jones being the key one. George Karlaftis is really good. Charles Omenihu. And then they have some depth with Trayshawn Wharton, Mike Dana, Mike Pennell, even Felix Nduke-Uzomah had 6 snaps last week, and he made 2 really big plays in it. So, you have that. It's a good offensive line, though. I mean, Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Osiris Torrance, David Edwards, and Connor McGovern are all I think Osiris Torrance is probably the weak spot, and you probably put Chris Jones on him at the right guard position, try and get some pressure there. But it should be good on good. I don't think this is going to be a dominant matchup either way. I think the Chiefs will get some wins. I also think that the Bills, will get a lot of stops. I think obviously the X factor to bring up is it's not like the Chiefs are just going to be setting 4 every time either.
Yeah, a big factor for this Bills playoff run so far has been how good this offensive line has been in the postseason. Even a guy like Torrance, who hasn't had his best season, I think has been good in the playoffs. I mean, I think just across the board, this has been a very tough group to beat, and they've dominated up front. And I think Chiefs dominated up front in the last game, and the defensive line was a huge factor in getting those stops late on Houston to get that win. And I think both of those are going to be huge factors in this game. The winner of the upfront battle in this one could define who goes to the Super Bowl, because both this defensive line and, like you said, the offensive line, and an extension, the linebackers with Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, who are all very good, are a huge part of these teams' success, And so I think the Bills' offensive line has its handful in a lot of ways, because this is a tough group, and Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw a lot of blitzes at them and a lot of surprise stuff. But at the same time, this team has this group at the offensive line for Buffalo has been one of the best in the league throughout the year.
Yeah. It's and there's no weak spot too. That's the other thing. The Chiefs have really good player. The Chiefs' best 3 offensive linemen are better than the Bills' best 3 offensive linemen. But then there's weak spots. The Bills don't have a weak spot. At the same time, though, if it's 3rd and 7, I still trust Chris Jones to make a play.
Yeah, he will. He will. And not to mention that they're going to throw pressure at Allen, and it's just going to be about how Josh Allen handles that. He's been very good about it in recent games, and especially in recent games against the Chiefs in both the regular season and postseason. But he's got to come up big in this game with some of those plays and read the blitz, read the rush, and make the right throw. And I think that's been a huge factor in his game, and could define why Buffalo wins it.
Yeah, his passer rating is 20 points higher when he is blitzed this season. 114 when he's blitzed, 94 when he is not blitzed. So there is a jump there. He takes advantage with these downfield passes. Kyle, what the hell are we even talking about? Who cares about the defenses and the offensive lines? This is Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, right? This is going to come down to which quarterback plays the best.
It is. It's going to be a huge factor in it. So I'm looking forward to that. I think there could be huge stakes in this game. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a very fun AFC Championship game for sure.
Yeah. Let's get into the picks then, I suppose. Kyle, I don't know why. Well, okay. Well, first we have a super chat from Overlap 618 saying, if either one of you pick the Chiefs, I'm banning you from this channel for forever. This is Overlap, the best in top mod. Overlap for president 2028. You might have my vote, Overlap. Yeah, but the Kyle, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm doing this again. I'm picking the Bills to win, and I'm stupid, and I keep doing this stupid thing. I in the definition of insanity here, I'm picking against the Chiefs once again. I swore I wouldn't do it, but I'm picking the Bills. I do feel like, well, I think we'll get similar quarterback stuff, and I just feel like the Bills have more advantages on the outside. I like their receiver depth, and I like their offensive line more. I'm only putting 1 point on it, though. Obviously, I couldn't do more than that. That's why I put 19 on the other one.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think there's a lot of logic to it. I was thinking about picking Buffalo in this game. I guess for the game perspective, it probably, even though I'm risking more points, so it doesn't really matter either way, I still think it makes sense for me to pick the Chiefs for the game's perspective and use my 11 points on it, just because it could swing a point in my favor, which could define the Super Bowl pick. So I think for the game, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. But man, I think I was leaning Buffalo by 3 in this game. So I could go either way. I think I would pick Buffalo in this game. But for the game, I'm going to pick the Chiefs and hope that I gain that extra point for the Super Bowl.
Okay, so just to clarify, you think the Bills will win. A gun to your head, you would pick the Bills, but for the game, you are picking the Chiefs and putting 11 points on it.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
That's what I'm going with. I was kind of hoping you pick the Chiefs in this one so that maybe I have a little more stakes, but obviously you're playing your strategy, so I got to match it with mine.
Okay. Well, yes. So Kyle, this now means that if the Bills win, then you will have 11 points added to your score. And no matter what happens at that point, if the Bills win this game, I will be picking the Super Bowl. If the Chiefs win and the Commanders win, you will have a 1 point lead. You will get to pick the Super Bowl. If the Eagles and the Bills both win, then not only will I be picking the Super Bowl, but all I'll have to do is make sure the team that I pick wins or loses by 9 or less points. Also, Overlap says ban at Kyle. I don't think that's how banning works. Overlap. I don't think you just send super chat saying ban at Kyle. I don't know if that's how it works. Okay, Kieran says Kyle gone. So yeah. I hope he's coming after your hat too. Kyle, this is
there's a lot of negative reactions to the Oasis
dumb brain.
My friend knitted this for me actually for my birthday. It was very nice.
That's I don't think I even know who. Do I know Oasis? I'm sure I've heard some of their songs.
You've probably heard Wonderwall.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, got it. Yeah, that's a great song. That's
one
of those classics.
Song. They also have like a lot of other good songs. So yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah. So basically, what I need to happen is the Commanders to win, and then if the Chiefs do end up winning, then like you said, I'll be picking, and then if not, then at least I'll be in a position that it's only a couple points. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Commanders and Chiefs win means so what? So if that happens, then I guess no. If the Commanders and Bills win, I believe would mean that I would still be up by 11 in that scenario. So I guess there would be some small chance where if the game is decided by 1, I could win. But yeah, so just to recap, if you're a Team Kyle fan, you're very much rooting for the Chiefs and the Commanders, but nobody cares about you enough to root for the Chiefs unless you're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah. Commanders and Chiefs that's a fun matchup. We haven't seen a Commanders and Chiefs matchup in like 150 years in this country.
Okay. Well, how long would how long were you sitting on that one, Kyle?
No, I actually just thought of it, so that's
Okay.
a good one.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, Kyle, what do you want to happen? I think we're all rooting for like Commanders Bills, right? Like just for entertainment's sake.
Yeah, I think so. Like, yeah, without a doubt, right?
Yeah, Commanders are just like they're all offense, no defense. That's exciting. Although, again, for my picks, now I have to root for the Eagles. I don't mind rooting for the Eagles. They're a fun team too.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. So,
No one's rooting for the Chiefs. We just
yeah,
want something
I
new.
think Buffalo is definitely the AFC, you know, neutral pick, I would say. And then you know what? Everyone's rooting for the Bills and Commanders. Do
Yeah,
people actually want to see Philadelphia happy? No, no one wants to see the city of Philadelphia happy. Philadelphia is at its strongest when they're miserable. You know, this is why, like, they're just miserable all the time. Like, they got the 76ers who are basically middling in, like, mediocrity. The Flyers stink. The Phillies managed to lose every postseason. Like, we thrive on Philly's misery. So that's what we want. And we don't want to see them have happiness or success because, honestly, they let it go to their head. And then Washington's a fun story. So, yeah. The people's Super Bowl is Bills Commanders. That's a fact.
yeah. I love all the people that were like, "Oh man, you already know the NFL is going to rig things for so that the Chiefs win." I just love like the Bills had like an egregious like pass interference call that helped them score points and also kill any time left for the Ravens to have another drive at the end of the half. And that's just like we forgot about that like 10 minutes after it happened.
Yeah. Nope, it's only for the Chiefs, man.
Yeah. Josh Allen, notoriously not a flopper and doesn't get the calls.
Yeah. Yeah. This is we're definitely going to see their quarterback. Both quarterbacks have their hands up like this to the head official why they didn't get a roughing the passer call. I can't wait for that. One of my favorite bits.
Yeah, I think no one's getting a pass interference or no one's getting a roughing the passer. I think the NFL is going to say, "Hey guys, let's just don't throw the flags on this."
Yeah, they can't have a repeat of that Patriots Chiefs game from way back where the roughing the passers were such a huge part of that game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kyle, let them know you can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin. And make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, if like audio only podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline Podcast. We should be available there. If there's any podcast feed you like and want it to be available, let me know. If it's not, I'll make it available there. But yeah, Kyle, that's our show. Look at us.
Yeah, we did it in an hour. Good job by us. And man, Sunday's going to be fun. So, are we doing 10:30 again on Sunday? Is that still a good enough time? Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep 10:30. I think that worked last time. We might change it, push a little back when it's Super Bowl because Super Bowl tends to just last longer. But yeah, let's 10:30 on Sunday where we can go over and talk about the Eagles and Chiefs rematch. How fun!
Yeah, once the referees give those two teams the games, we'll talk about it all this weekend. And
we'll break down the controversial roughing the passer penalties. Yeah, we'll cover it all. 10:30 Sunday.
We should just show up in black and white stripes, like rooting for our favorite team this weekend.
Yeah, or I guess black and red stripes.
Black and red,
because that's the meme of like the ref wearing
the
like
Chiefs
the Chiefs
jersey.
colors.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. I think any other thoughts? Are ready to get out of here?
I'm good. Let's get out of here.
Okay, it's a bit of a short show, but thank you to everybody for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. Like I said, we'll be back Sunday, 10:30 Eastern, and until then, have a good one.
Peace.